In this video, I'm going to show you how to win off spawn consistently and how I was able to go from losing to winning every time. What's up guys, welcome to the 9th episode of Progression to Pro. This is a series where I show my progression every week on the road towards becoming a pro and share things I learned along the way that help you improve. If you enjoyed this series, please consider using code HOWL in the item shop. Having a good off spawn is so important because it determines how the rest of your game is going to go. If you get contested and disengaged from your drop, your loot may be bad and you have to sacrifice good positioning to farm and find more loot. If you win off spawn, you have surge and all of your drops loot, and if you die off spawn, you waste a game that could cost you your tournament. I'm going to cover ways to get the best drop, create advantages, and win fights consistently. First thing you need to do is find a drop spot with enough loot you're comfortable fighting at and rotating out of. Wherever you choose, you want to make sure you have at least 7 chest spawns in solos and 14 in duos. And if you're only getting the minimum amount of chests, you want to make sure that you're getting hard matched easily from your spot. If you're a confident fighter, you can land a more contested drop for the chance of better loot, and if you're a less confident fighter, you may be better off landing a split drop or less contested POI, which gives less loot, but gives you a lower chance of getting contested and consistently live off spawn. Just know that wherever you choose to drop, you'll have to fight eventually. There's no drop on the map that gets uncontested 10 out of 10 games in a cash cup or FNCS. And if you do happen to find a drop like that, it's most likely trash because no one else wants to land there. No matter the fighting level you're at, you can increase the chances of winning off spawn tremendously by having a good strategy and enough preparation. The biggest advantage and key to winning off spawn is your drop. If you have a bad drop, you can't choose which building you want to land at, you give your opponent more time to loot, and might even be able to kill you out the air. Having the best drop allows you to choose which building you want to land at and set up for major advantages that could dictate how the fight goes. In this clip, you can see that First and Acorn are both trying to land at the same building and tilted. Acorn outdrops First, and that forces him to land on a chest in the open where he gets shot by both Acorn and Edgy, and then they close in on Buzz in the 2v1 to win tilted no problem. If First outdropped Acorn, he would have controlled that building, forcing Acorn to settle for a building with less loot, and the fight might have ended differently. At some spots, fights are 50-50 decided by who gets the better drop, and that's why you see pros use drop maps to consistently give them the best possible drop. You could create your own drop map by experimenting with pulling your glider at different spots on the map and see what gives you the best drop and mark it until you have a mark for every bus path. An easier way to do this is by using a website called landingtutorial.com, also known as Copilot. On here, you can mark where you want to drop, plug in the bus route, and it calculates when you should drop out the bus and where you should pull your glider in order for the best possible drop. It's important to note that Copilot is not always 100% accurate and it should be used more as a tool to get a rough idea of where the mark is so you could adjust and find the perfect drop. Another way to learn how to drop at your spot is by watching pros and watching where they pull their gliders. If you ever watch a pro play a tournament, you'll notice that their drops are always so good because they know how important a drop is towards winning off spawn. If you watch to see when they pull their gliders to get the best drop, you can use the same drop and see similar results. Just like Copilot, their drops might not be 100% accurate all the time, which is why I recommend using their drops as a reference point and find the best drop for yourself. Even if you have the best drop map in the world, if you don't know when to choose certain marks or how to drop out the bus, you won't get the best drop. This comes with practice, and I recommend focusing on getting the best possible drop every time you play a game, even if it's only arena. Many pros practice their drop by queuing into a custom match and test their marks from all different bus paths. If you don't have a custom code, you could of course just queue in the pubs and leave after you test your drop. Having the best drop will give you a huge edge over your opponent, but even with that, you still need to know how to create other advantages to guarantee the win. Those advantages would be loot, mats, and positioning. In order to win off spawn consistently, you need to eliminate RNG and create those advantages for yourself. Landing on natural shields such as slurp trucks or slurp barrels eliminate the RNG of getting shields out of chests and coolers. If you don't have natural shield at your drop, it's best that you drop out as many chests as possible, increasing your chance of getting shield and more loot than your opponent. Where I land in solos, there's 5 slurp barrels and 3 chest spawns in the basement. If I could get the best drop to the basement, I could land on the chest and get 50 shield guaranteed. In this fight, I was able to get the slurp barrels and my opponent was still at 100 HP and no shield. I was able to win the 50-50 because I had more shield and loot than him. The next advantage is mats. When fighting off spawn, the last thing you want to do is run out of mats and either commit to an aim duel or refarm an entire building, dragging out the fight. You want to make sure you're farming things that give you the most amount of mats in the least amount of time. In this clip, we landed sleepy but only claimed one house, which gave our opponents the loot advantage. We were forced to run back to Lighthouse for more loot, and you could see that our opponents were able to quickly farm max brick and then push us knowing that they had the mat advantage and were able to spray us until we had no mats and win the fight. We gave up the material and positioning advantage when we decided to run back to Lighthouse for better loot. To win that, we either needed to jump on the solo who pushed earlier and waited for his duo, or claim another house in Sleepy to cut off their loot so we aren't forced to go to Lighthouse. Positioning, especially in duels, determines what buildings you can control and the overall pace of the fight. In some jobs, landing high elevation off spawn may give you less loot, but allows you to land earlier, tag opponents, and have more control over buildings. In other jobs, there may be no elevation advantage, but positioning in a way where you could cut off opponent's loot route or pinch one player can create big advantages and end fights quick. Using another example from Acorn and Edgy, you can see that Acorn has the best job for his building, and Edgy drops over at this building, cutting off any loot that their opponents can get, and they are forced to rotate down the gas station in order to get more loot. Knowing that they have better loot, Acorn and Edgy pinch the team from two angles and eventually kill them because of their drops and positioning off spawn. In our first and second dual cash cup of the season, we died off spawn or left with shambles loot too often. We didn't have a set plan for which houses to take, and our drops weren't always the best. After dying off spawn 6 out of 9 games in our week 2 cash cup, we knew something needed to change, and we took the time to VOD review pros who landed at our spot and learned their strategies and drops. In the most recent cash cup, we out-dropped our opponents every time and took control over the majority of the loot, allowing us to finish fights quick. Even when our loot was worse than our opponents, we were still able to win because we had the mat and positioning advantage and sprayed them until they were out of mats, forcing them to make a play. This week in the dual cash cup, we were able to win off spawn every game east and west because we knew how to play our drop properly. The next thing we need to focus on is converting our top 10s into wins. If we could do that, we will start to qualify for round 2s of the cash cup and later rounds of FNCS. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe if you're new, I'd really appreciate it. I'm live every day and stream all tournaments at twitch.tv/AOFYM. And be sure to follow my Twitter for any upload or stream updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.